Georgia and South Carolina getting ready to play on Saturday, but this morning, Matt, we heard that Brian Bresee, he announced that his sister passed. I just wanted to recognize that. I know you knew that family a little bit.
Yeah, really good people. He was very high on Georgia, so was his family. In the end, they chose Clemson, but got to know them a little bit. She was dealing with brain cancer and has been for a while. I thought she was doing better not too long ago, but I didn't know the latest. She did pass away this morning. Just really sad time for that family. They're really good people. They were very good to dog post whenever I reached out for the latest on Brian and his recruitment. So just really tough there. He's a great kid, really good player, and that's a very close, tight knit family. So just really tough news to wake up to this morning.
Yeah, it's tragic. Tragedy exists in this world for sure. Georgia and South Carolina, the Dogs are a significant favorite. Ryan, I'm going to come to you first on this. I mean, I don't know that I see a path for South Carolina here, but I know that I've lived through some pretty crazy results, specifically the 2000 game. But that was a very different time. Georgia listed, I think, as a 24.5 point favorite. What's your comments coming into this thing, Ryan?
I mean, off the rip, I think that Georgia's more than 24 and a half points better than South Carolina football this season. So to me, I don't think that line is too crazy. I know that any line that's over 20 points is very difficult to pull off, but
All right.
I mean, Georgia is ranked number one now. The rankings don't matter until later on in the year, but to me, that is right at the moment, and I don't think they're just not close to being in the same spot right now. And South Carolina over the last 10 years has been in better positions than they are. I don't think they have a lot of guys with a lot of talent. I know that, they've got the defensive lineman Jordan Burch. So they're not without talent, but Georgia just
Right.
has so many more talented players and a lot of players that have won big games. I just think that I don't think it'll be that close.
Okay, Matt.
Yeah, Georgia's the number one team in the country, and I expect them to play like it on Saturday. They obviously did not play up to their standard and the standard that we've got accustomed to watching them play last week against Samford. I expect them to come out and aggressive, get points on the board early. It's a business trip. So, first SEC game of the year, I expect them to come out and play really well, especially early on. Um, South Carolina gave up almost 300 rushing yards to Arkansas last week. Raheem Sanders by himself had 150. So their defensive line, Ryan said they're talented, and they are. They've got, multiple former 5-star and 4-star guys there, but they just haven't been playing well. A lot of those defensive linemen had a lot of tackles against Arkansas, but there was 5-6 yards down the field. So they were getting pushed backwards. And I do think that, Georgia's offensive line is one of the best, not only in the SEC, but in the country. I expect them to have a very big day. And we've been talking about how, is Georgia going to run the ball a little bit better, as the season goes on. I think this is a big game for Georgia's run game, but I still think they're going to throw it around a good bit. Stetson Bennett's had over 300 yards passing the last 2 games. I expect that to happen again. I don't think A.D. Mitchell is going to play, but I think this could be a big game for the tight ends again. Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers. I think Stetson Bennett goes over that 300-yard passing mark again, and I expect them to have a lot of success on the ground. So Spencer Rattler was sacked 6 times. I don't know if Georgia's going to get to him 6 times, but dude's going to be running for his life. They're not very good in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They can be pushed around. So just a really bad matchup for South Carolina. I do think they're heading in the right direction as a program, but I think it could be a bloodbath in Columbia on Saturday.
I fully expect Georgia to win this game by a lot. I just don't know if I expect them to win by 25. And you know, sometimes you have to take your history of or your knowledge of a particular place or thing out of it. Georgia is just significantly better. When you watch Carolina play, um, they don't mind running screens at all on offense. I don't know if that's because they don't feel real comfortable running the ball. Y'all, they're not running the ball at all effectively, and they're getting run on like crazy. It's a terrible formula. I do think, Matt, what you said is accurate. I think that they're moving in the right direction. I think they might be a little further. I thought they could there was a realm of possibility they could beat Clemson this year after the first week. And then I watched South Carolina's 2 games, and I'm just like, Clemson's down from where they've been, but South Carolina's not caught they're not moving forward in a way that's really, important. Let me just say this for Georgia. 15 times, Ryan, in Kirby's tenure, the Dogs have thrown for 300 yards on offense. Stetson's been the starter in 6 of those games. I think that one thing that, including the last 4 consecutive games, if I'm not mistaken, I think the thing that I am trying to break myself of is saying, hey, Georgia's always been this. Therefore, if they're not this, it equals a problem. I would like to see them run more effectively. I'm not sure that matters. Comments?
No, I think that there's something I went back and forth with myself on. Well, it's not the same. Well, it doesn't matter if they're winning and if they're producing points on offense. I don't think it matters how they do it. It's the same way we talk about whether their defense is better or whether their offense is better. It doesn't matter how they win a game. It doesn't matter how they score points. It's as long as they're doing that, and they're doing that with this quick hitting side to side, a lot of screen passes and things that are just boom, boom, boom out in the flats, and it's working. And they have the proper personnel to carry that out. Stetson, you don't want Stetson sitting back there for a long time anyway. So you want him to get the ball out fast to guys that are dangerous with the ball in their hands, like Lad McConkey or Brock Bowers or Kenny McIntosh. And those types of players are the ones that they're running all this to. So if that can mask a run game and if it keeps working, then I don't think there's a problem. But you would like to see them become a little bit more efficient on the ground.
Hey, let me say this, Matt. I throw it to you. It does look like South Carolina had a lot of trouble with Arkansas's run game because but they're a big, big group. Is this the game where Kendall Milton goes for 120 or 140?
If he gets enough carries and opportunities, I still think they're going to let Kenny McIntosh do his thing. Dejan Edwards deserves carries. I mean, he's running really well. But I found what Kirby said earlier this week interesting. He said, we don't look at the numbers the way everyone else does. I mean, when we throw it quickly to Kenny McIntosh, to us, that's a run. And you've got Brock Bowers and, Rosemary Jackson out there blocking. I mean, to us, we put that in rush yards. So he kind of said that we don't know what we were talking about a little bit, which was funny. Not the Dog Post crew. We obviously know what's going on, but
clearly,
they look at things differently. But we were told in the offseason, hey, they're going to do exactly. Stetson Bennett's going to do more than he did the past 2 years. And I think we all talked about them opening the offense a little bit more in the passing game. So
I think the worry, let me say this,
Matt.
Matt.
Worried about the running game.
The worry that I have when you're dependent on one singular player is that a singular player cannot perform well. And that, that's the concern. I don't think Stetson was great against Samford, I have to say, but they still won the game pretty effectively. I think the days of them saying, "Hey, here's Nick Chubb, and if you don't like Nick, here's Sony, and if you don't like that, here's DeAndre Swift, and yeah, we also have Elijah Holyfield, and sometimes we have Brian Herian." I mean, that's all gone, and what they've said is we have a bunch of X-wing fighters on the outside, Ryan, and then we also have these nasty tanks of tight ends, and we're just coming at you. Good luck.
They, while they had those really stacked running back rooms in the past, they didn't have as deep of a weaponry on the outside the way that they do right now. So it's flipped in a way, and maybe some people are just not used to seeing it, but they're working with the personnel that they have, and they're working with the staff that they have. Todd Monken is proving that he's one of the best offensive minds in college football, and he's got a really deep in their versatility, the personnel for Georgia, and there's a lot of different things you can do with it. It's not just the power run game and then a play action, but the receivers the last 10 years for Georgia weren't that versatile. In 17 you had Terry Godwin and Mecole Hardman, but they're not the same as guys like A.D. Mitchell and Lyle McConkey, and then you mix in all those tight ends who sometimes don't even look like tight ends. They're very dynamic, and Georgia's offense has shown us they can do different things over the last 2 weeks. I think we'll see even different things in week 3, just because there's definitely stuff that they're not showing yet because of how deep they are in their versatility and their personnel.
Well, Look, ESPN is going to delay the kickoff of this game slightly so that they can broadcast 2001 when South Carolina comes out. It is actually one of the great entrances in college football. I know that really annoys the Rock Rubbers up in Pickens County, but still. Hey, make sure you're picking up DAWGSTRUCTION today. The link is down below. uh, we're getting to the holiday season. You want to make sure that you've got this ready. I don't want to run out. You never know when that's going to happen. Make sure you're picking it up. A lot of folks are still buying it. It is a great entrance, and I don't know how many times y'all have been to Columbia, but it is one of the all-time great entrances. It's extremely loud. Now they've incorporated Sandstorm into it. They've got these towels that look like the Steelers a little bit. Um, but I mean, Shane Beamer was talking about how South Carolina believes, number one, and then number two, he was saying to folks that they need to get into the stadium early. He was saying that it's very important that Georgia's not played a true road game this year. Shane, they've not played a true road game since they played at Tennessee last year. I mean, it's been a long time,
They're not a lot.
and it's not
Yeah,
common.
yeah. That place can get really loud for a quarter, and that's what we saw in 2018 when I covered them. So they can get loud, they can get rowdy, but I do think that's why it's important that Georgia does come out to a fast start, because they can get pretty quiet pretty quick. Same in Neyland Stadium. But back to Ryan's point real quick. He said they might open it up. I agree there, but they don't have to. They can do the exact same thing against Oregon and Samford that they did and do it successfully against South Carolina. If they just get the ball to the backs and have their perimeter blocking that block the same way they have, just physical and tough and throwing their guy into next week, they should have no problem. I think the skill set, talent, and overall depth is going to lead Georgia to a big win. I hope we see something new. It would just be something, fun to see, first SEC game, but I don't think they necessarily have to do anything special in order to win this game by more than 24 and a half.
Yeah, no, that's it's kind of similar. I remember during the Oregon game, someone texted me they need to get the ball to Bowers more, and at this point, it was I think almost 30 something to 3, and I was like, well, they don't have to. If they look at how much they're winning, they don't have to. I think that's one of the strengths of the Georgia team is they can beat you in multiple ways on the offensive side of the ball. So I don't know what we'll see against South Carolina. I do think it'll be closer to the way they played against Oregon than to the way that they played against Samford, as far as they just want to, like, they played slower against Samford, and I think we'll see something a little bit quicker, because against South Carolina, you want to get in there and quiet that place down fast.
Arkansas, y'all really hurt them with a quick game. I mean, Arkansas was up to the line. It was not abnormal for Arkansas to snap the ball with 30 seconds on the play clock. I mean, I don't know how much y'all watched of those games. I mean, my other, I don't know, y'all can take, someone can take it from here, but my other thing for South Carolina, the real problem, if you want to call it that, I'm not sure how they score, more than 10 points. I think it is not out of the realm of possibility that Georgia's defense outscores South Carolina. And the reason why I say that is you've got an offense that has permitted 9 sacks already. Spencer Rattler's got 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions and a fumble or 2. I can't remember. A couple of South Carolina's touchdowns on the season have been punt blocks. They're not really efficient offensively. Georgia, we've not seen really get a score yet on defense. Spencer Rattler tries to make things happen sometimes too much. I think that's a recipe for Georgia possibly outscoring them with the defense.
Yeah, I think they'll move the ball a little bit. I don't see them scoring a touchdown.
You don't think they score a touchdown at all, South Carolina?
No, I think I have them getting to 9
points.
I think
that's really
specific.
bold, man. That is really.
Well, yours is a little bit more bold.
Well,
Georgia's defense outscores their offense.
Yeah, I could see 9 points, but Georgia does a good job of not letting guys get in the end zone. That's their thing. Yeah. We'll bend a little bit. We're not going to break. You're not getting in our end zone, and that's kind of been the theme for this Georgia defense for a few years now. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if South Carolina did not get in the end zone this game.
You still have, like Josh Vann has been a pretty good receiver for South Carolina, and so it's not like they're without guys. And Marshall, the Lynch kid is very good. I don't know why they don't run. I don't know why they don't try to run.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they don't have the line. Really, I talked to a buddy of mine who covered South Carolina for a decade plus, and I said, "What % chance do you think Carolina has to win this game?" He said 0. I said, "Really? You're not even going to give them like 10% or anything?" Nope, 0. I was like, "Damn, man. So certainty is really not an ideal thing. I mean, that's how we really get into trouble, I think. But I think this, I just, I don't see it. You know, I think they're in as much, if not more, trouble than Oregon was. Ryan.
Yeah, they're just I don't think that they're ready for that. They weren't good last year, and they've showed it doesn't look like they've really improved that much, even though you add a Spencer Rattler and you add a lot of.
I don't think they have improved. I don't. I mean,
There's
I
been a
don't
lot
think
of
they
hype
have.
around South Carolina over the offseason, just that they'll be, but not that they're going to be this crazy playoff contender, but that this program is taking another step forward. In 2 games, they haven't taken a step forward to me based on what we saw last year. And Georgia is, I think, more dangerous offensively. And I mean, what they've done the last 2 games on the defensive side of the ball is super impressive. Georgia's defense is very fast. And they do want to be physical. I don't think they're quite as physical as they were last year, but I think that
The
they have more
dogs.
speed all around.
The dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, let me tell you something, y'all. I have gotten stuck South Carolina TikTok. If you don't follow our TikTok, you really should. It's a lot of Ryan, but there's some other stuff in there too. The only reason I say that, y'all, is because I have managed to get myself stuck on um on South Carolina TikTok, and it is something else, man. It is like it's Georgia Hate Week, which is like, let's try to, you look
Nice.
at Matt, he knows, yeah.
Nice.
It's like, and so like there's not a lot of highlights through the years, and there's, well, I'm just being honest,
Yeah,
and in my final feelings, I write about, my final feelings got a little out of control. I'm just gonna tell you
that's
right now,
great. That's
mine
great.
got a little bit long. Um, but I started talking about some of the nutball games we've seen in this series in '09, 11, 2000, 1993. But like you think about the South Carolina has played Georgia 15 times in Columbia, Matt, since they come in the league. 15 times. You know how many times they've won in Columbia, Carolina?
Once. I don't think I heard you right. How many times they beaten Georgia in Columbia?
Correct. Yeah. In
Was
15
it
tries.
um probably
Just
three,
so
three or four,
five
5 times?
times. Yeah. Once in 96, which is probably one that you're not even thinking about, but it's not been a lot.
Yeah,
They did win three in a row in 10, 11, 10, 12, and 14. But
yeah.
besides that little stretch, they just
Well,
they
Quincy Carter
didn't.
had a really bad game there, right? Was
Yeah,
that the five interception
that
game?
was kind of one of
Yeah,
the most shocking. My wife and I went to that game, and as people may or may not know, not only is she extremely good looking, but she also is a big Clemson fan, and so we went to that game, and her family, the other side of the family, is a bunch of chickens, and so we went to that game, and that was a game where South Carolina stormed the field back to back days. So we're meeting up with the other side of the family, and here comes the goalpost, and like my wife
nice.
almost got her head taken off by the goalpost, and I can assure you she was not very pleased with the her fine feathered friends. But
Well,
go ahead.
I'll say this real quick. Those people hate Georgia.
They
I mean,
do.
Georgia is right behind Clemson for them.
Yeah.
They hate Kentucky for a different reason. They think they should be above Kentucky in football just all time. And that's a hump they have to get over. But those people hate Georgia over there. One of my best friends is a big time Carolina fan, wants nothing to do with the
Why
dogs.
do you
Every time I
think?
try to
What
bring
do
them
you
up or
think?
anything.
Let's like when you're in the dentist's office and the
Yeah,
guy's like, "Hey, does this hurt?" Yeah, it hurts, bro.
yeah. You're picking
You're
at it.
jamming me with this needle or whatever you got going
Yeah.
on there in your hand. Why? What's their problem? Like what?
Well,
Like
Well, from what I've gathered, a lot of them just live in Atlanta, and I think that's you can make the case for any school. The Clemson fans that live in Atlanta hate Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee. Anyone who lives in the Atlanta area, Metro Atlanta area, they either have friends who are Georgia fans, coworkers who are Georgia people. So it's easy to see why if you go to school somewhere else and you move to the Atlanta area or even to Georgia in general, you're going to hate the dogs because there's red and black everywhere. So I
everywhere.
get it, but I think as a program They've had a little success against Georgia, like you've said, here and there, and I think Lou Holtz did a good job of getting that program back, and so they got to a respectable level. But right now, it's just kind of it's not there. They're not competing with Georgia ever since that 2019 win. But yeah, this is one they look forward to, and they've not been on the right side of it lately.
So, having gone to school in South Carolina over in Hartsville at Coker, I mean, I feel like I understand this in a way that most people don't. There's a lot of envy there. When I went to school, it was just after Carolina came into the conference. They'd never won a bowl game until 1994 season. And besides the shocking result against Georgia in 93, they really had very sporadic success. The other thing, and this may be something Ryan is unaware of, for decades, Georgia played Clemson and South Carolina. And let me tell you, for decades, they whipped their ass, both of them. And we hear a lot about Georgia and Clemson in the 80s. It's like, listen, bitch, I mean, they play like 60 times, and we're talking about a stretch of 5 games. So let's not get too excited about that. Um, and they were both very good programs at the time, but they had played all through the 70s and most of the 60s. Georgia was one of the few teams that was good in football that consistently played at South Carolina. You have to remember, Clemson was not good, generally speaking. I mean, go back and look at Frank Howard's
Yeah,
record. It wasn't great.
yeah,
Not that Vince and them were just ripping it up, but typically when Georgia went to Columbia, they were ranked. Georgia was one of the few teams that South Carolina could depend on coming to Columbia every single year. Most years they were ranked. And, like when they went to Columbia in 81, 83, those were pretty good Georgia teams. 85, not as much. 87, that was a pretty good Georgia team. They got kind of off the even odd thing, but um, when South Carolina came into the league in 92, Georgia wanted to keep playing Clemson every other year, every other 2 years stretch. And it just became too much. So they played Clemson in 90, 91, and then they played South Carolina like they were going to in 92, 93. And then they played Clemson again in 94, 95. And I think somebody at Georgia was like, hey, look, this is a little bit much. You can't play everybody. You can't play Clemson and Tech and, like we've added 2 conference games. We don't play 6 games in the league anymore. You got to get rid of somebody. We brought Carolina in. Clemson's got to go. So before Carolina came into the league, they always had the game with Georgia. It was opposite typically the year they hosted Clemson. It was usually at the beginning of the season. But, South Carolina had a history of playing Nebraska occasionally. They would play Florida State, Miami occasionally. They played USC occasionally. But their schedule was typically Clemson, Georgia, and whoever they could cobble in from the ACC. That was a lot of North Carolina State. That was a lot of North Carolina and a lot of East Carolina. And then South Carolina would just travel a lot too. They played Georgia Tech a fair amount as well, who was also independent. So the history lesson there is that for a long time, this was brewing for South Carolina, Ryan. And now they play them every year. They get the benefit of playing them every year. And South Carolina's come a long, long way in their 30 years in the SEC. But I think that they have had their glory years, and that could happen again. I just don't see it happening anytime soon. But that is the basic reason why they dislike Georgia, is because they've lost to them a lot. Although Georgia came to Columbia way more than anybody else except Clemson.
I mean, you can tell they've lost him a lot, but it's not the 2010 to 2014 stretch where South Carolina was just a pretty good football program during that. It's not like that anymore. And
No.
it wasn't like that in 2019 when they beat Georgia in Athens. That was a little bit flukier. That was like the Super Bowl for those South Carolina fans after that game. I saw that very close up, but they're just in completely different spots, and I'm not sure that they've ever really been in the same spot. I mean, Georgia's just always been a better program. I didn't live through a lot of what you just said, but I've read about it, and they have been better for a really long time, and they're significantly better right now. And I think envy probably is a good way to put it. When you beat a team like that over and over again, that creates hatred and jealousy, and that's a good way to establish the relationship between Carolina and Georgia. But I've seen what it's like up close for them to beat Georgia. It's a
But
really big.
you've not been to an away game in Columbia.
I've never been to Columbia. No, this will be trip one for
You've
me.
never been to Columbia ever.
Not just passing through. I don't really count that.
So
Most just pass through. Yeah.
Well, I
you
haven't
are up
heard
to
good
date on
things.
all vaccines. You have your tetanus
Yeah.
shot. Uh, you got all sorts of I'm not going to get too deep into all of that. Do you like chain link fences? Are you a fan of warehouses and parking lots? Because Columbia, South Carolina, the capital of the Palmetto State, may be the place for you.
It's not the place. Well,
Do you like nearly dying on the side of the road at a college football game? Because if you like that, then Columbia might be the place for you. I can keep going if you'd like, but I decided not to. Go ahead, Matt.
There we go. I didn't know if y'all had seen the weather. Usually it's a hot sweat box out there, not even a box, just the sun beating down on you because there's no trees around. But I don't think it's going to be as bad tomorrow. And just a quick flashback to the 2009 game. That was one of my favorite games that I went to, as a
game was
youth in
nuts.
college and in Sanford Stadium. That night game, Georgia almost lost there at the end, but that was just a back and forth game that I think a lot of people just forgot about being over a decade ago. But they've had some really good games in the past, and but I don't think Saturday is going to be one of them.
No, and I don't. Well, we'll just see, Carolina.
Yeah.
Well, I don't listen. There's a lot of, and another thing, Ryan, about this thing too. The game has typically been the first big game of the year, and so South Carolina kind of gets a running start and gives all they got. They've already lost a game this season, so I think this is put up or shut up time for Shane Beamer after this game. Obviously, if they shock Georgia, that's one thing, but he was saying, I don't want to hear about shocking the world. I don't want to hear about this, that, and the other. My suspicion is that he knows what they're getting into, but we'll see. I think it's a great atmosphere. It really is, and they do a really good job. They're doing as much as they can with what they've got. It's an off-campus stadium. Those people love South Carolina. I can confirm that to you. They really do, and it's their home and all this stuff. It's just they're just not. This is not an ideal situation for them heading into the Dogs. So we'll be in Columbia Friday night for this spectacular. Ryan's never been to Columbia ever. We'll have to report back after the game on how.
I'll let you know how it goes.
It's not like Athens. Like there's no one place to go. Everything's not contiguous. Sometimes
Do we
you
have
to get to
Friday night plans?
Compare it to Auburn, Clemson.
We do have Friday night plans. Matt,
let's go.
We're going to keep them to ourselves because I'm dealing with the in-laws on this one. So.
Nice.
All right, everyone behave themselves as much as possible. We'll see you from Columbia after the game.